Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're going to be diving into Warren Buffett, the ultimate guide to investing like a pro.
The 1 hour guide.
Yeah, the 1 hour guide, that's right, by Anil Nathu.
Yeah, it's a fantastic resource for anyone who's looking to kind of get into that like Buffett mindset.
Mhm.
Understand his investment philosophy, apply his wisdom to their own financial decisions.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm always fascinated by people who can take these really complex ideas and distill them into something that's simple and actionable. And I think that's what Anil Nathu does really well on this 1 hour guide. It's like a crash course in bucket brilliance.
It is. And what's so cool about Warren Buffett is that his wisdom isn't just confined to just finance.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like it touches on leadership, personal growth, decision making. It's a whole philosophy for life.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so let's unpack this 1 hour guide by Anil Nathu and see what we can learn from the Oracle of Omaha. I think a good place to start is with his journey, Like Buffett wasn't born with a silver spoon. He actually started out pretty modestly.
Absolutely. His story is a great reminder that success isn't always about where you start, but it's about the choices you make along the way. I mean, imagine like a young Warren Buffett out there selling chewing gum and Coca-Cola as a kid.
It's like a scene from a movie, right?
Yeah.
Like you can see this entrepreneurial spirit just bubbling up even then.
Totally.
And it's interesting how those early experiences almost foreshadow his later success.
Right. He bought his first stock at just 11 years old.
Wow.
And even though he ended up selling it too soon and missing out on some potential profit, I think it was a valuable lesson in patience, which became like a cornerstone of his investment approach.
Yeah, it makes you wonder if there were any experiences in your own life, like that lemonade stand you ran or the neighborhood car wash you organized, that might have hinted at your entrepreneurial spirit or interest in finance.
Thinking back on those early experiences, I think can be really insightful. For Buffett, it wasn't just about making a quick buck. It was about understanding value, seeing opportunity where others didn't. And that drive, I think, is something we see again and again throughout his journey, from delivering newspapers to investing in farmland to setting up pinball machines and local businesses.
It's like he was always hustling, always looking for a new angle, a way to create value.
Yeah.
And it's almost like he had this innate sense of what would work.
Yeah, and that kind of brings us to the Warren Buffett way, which is outlined in the 1 hour guide by Anil Nathu. And it kind of boils down to these 4 core principles. Investing in businesses with long-term growth potential, buying those businesses when they're undervalued, making sure those companies have high returns on invested capital, and working with managers who are honest and competent.
Okay, so those principles, on the surface, sound pretty straightforward. But I imagine there's a lot of nuance to actually putting them into practice.
There is. They seem simple at first glance, but they're deceptively powerful. It's not just about following a checklist. It's about developing a really deep understanding of value, of what makes a business truly sustainable and profitable in the long run.
So it's not just about chasing the latest trends or hot stocks.
Exactly. It's about taking a long-term perspective, looking for companies that are built to last, that have a solid foundation, and are kind of adaptable to change. Think of it like planting a tree. You're not doing it for the shade it gives you today, but for the shade it will provide for years to come.
That's a great analogy. So how does a company like Apple, which is one of Buffett's biggest holdings, fit into this philosophy? They seem to be doing pretty well.
Apple, under Tim Cook's leadership, I think, is a perfect example of how these principles can translate into extraordinary success. They focus on innovation, they focus on delivering exceptional products, they focus on building a loyal customer base, all things that contribute to long-term value creation.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Now, I'm kind of curious about the actual companies that make up the Warren Buffett portfolio.
Yeah.
The 1 hour guide by Anil Nathu goes into detail about this, right?
It does. And what's interesting is that Buffett's portfolio isn't just a random collection of stocks. He's very deliberate about the businesses he chooses to invest in. He's not interested in quick flips or chasing the latest fads. He wants to own a piece of companies that he understands, that have solid track records, strong brands, and a history of generating consistent value.
So instead of spreading his bets across, hundreds of different companies, he focuses on a select few that he truly believes in.
Exactly. And he holds on to those investments for the long haul, often for decades. Some of his most iconic holdings include Coca-Cola, Wells Fargo, Geico. These are all companies that have proven themselves over time, that have kind of weathered economic storms and come out stronger.
Yeah, I remember reading about Berkshire Hathaway, the holding company that manages all of these incredible businesses. It's fascinating how that all started with like a struggling textile company.
Right. Acquiring Berkshire Hathaway was actually one of Buffett's biggest mistakes. But instead of giving up on it, he was able to turn it into a financial powerhouse. It's a real testament to his ability to adapt, think strategically, and turn setbacks into opportunities. And it's a key part of his story that's covered in the 1 Hour Guide by Anil Nathu.
It's incredible how he took what could have been like a major failure and turned it into one of the most successful investment vehicles of all time.
Yeah. So we've talked about the portfolio as a whole, but now I'm kind of curious about how he actually chooses individual stocks. What are the key principles behind the Warren Buffett stocks?
One thing that really sets Buffett apart is this focus on intrinsic value. This means like looking beyond the current stock price and trying to determine what a company is truly worth, like based on its assets, its earnings potential, its future prospects.
So it's not just about looking at the numbers on a spreadsheet. No.
It's about understanding like the underlying business and its long-term potential.
Precisely. It's about seeing the forest for the trees. He's also a big believer in quality over quantity. It's better to own a few great businesses than a bunch of mediocre ones. And of course, it all comes back to that long-term focus. Buy and hold, let those companies grow, and let that value compound over time.
And that brings us to another fascinating aspect of his approach, which is the difference between Berkshire Hathaway's Class A and Class B shares.
Yeah.
Why did he create this dual-class system?
This was, I think, a very deliberate move on Buffett's part. The Class A shares, the original ones, are incredibly expensive, and that's because he never wanted to split them. He wanted to keep them in the hands of long-term investors who shared his vision, not people looking to make a quick buck.
So it was a way to kind of discourage short-term speculation and attract investors who were more aligned with his philosophy of long-term value creation.
Exactly. He's always been critical of Wall Street's obsession with short-term gains, and this focus on speculation rather than true investment. He wants partners, not gamblers.
Right. That makes a lot of sense.
Hmm.
Now, thinking back to the 2008 financial crisis, which is covered extensively in the 1 Hour Guide by Anil Nathu, I remember how a lot of people kind of got caught up in the housing bubble.
Yeah,
But Buffett didn't.
right.
He was cautious, understood the risks, and kind of stuck to his principles.
Yeah, that's a key takeaway from his approach. It's not about trying to time the market or predict the next big crash. It's about understanding value, managing risk, and being prepared for those kind of inevitable ups and downs of the market.
It sounds like his philosophy is as much about psychology as it is about finance.
Absolutely. It's about discipline, patience, and the ability to think independently. And it's something that anyone can learn and apply to their own financial decisions.
So what stands out to you the most about Buffett's investment philosophy so far?
For me, it's the combination of simplicity and profound insight. He takes these seemingly basic principles and he applies them with incredible consistency and discipline. And the results, I think, speak for themselves.
It's like what's really cool about Warren Buffett is that his wisdom, it goes way beyond finance.
That's true. He's got all these insightful quotes and sayings. They offer these valuable lessons that apply to life in general.
Oh, I love that. It's like he's not just teaching us about investing, but he's teaching us about how to, approach challenges, how to make decisions, and how to build a meaningful life.
Totally. And the 1 Hour Guide by Anil Nathu does such a good job of capturing these motivational Warren Buffett sayings.
Okay, so let's hear some of these gems. What are some of your favorites?
All right, so one that always sticks with me is someone sitting in the shade today because someone planted a tree a long time ago.
Mm.
And I just think that's such a powerful reminder that the actions we take today, they can have a ripple effect far into the future.
I love that. It's about thinking long term. And it's about making choices that benefit not just ourselves, but future generations.
Precisely. It applies to so many areas of life, building a business, nurturing relationships, even personal growth. It all takes time, consistent effort, and a willingness to kind of delay that gratification for a greater reward down the line.
Yeah. Okay, so here's another one that I find really thought-provoking. It takes 20 years to build a reputation and 5 minutes to ruin it. If you think about that, you'll do things differently.
Oh, that one's all about integrity, It's about making those choices that are aligned with your values, even when no one's watching.
Right. And it's like we live in this world where things move so fast.
Yeah.
It's so easy to get caught up in the moment and make these impulsive decisions.
Yeah.
But Buffett is reminding us to slow down. Think about those long-term consequences of our actions and protect that reputation that we work so hard to build. Okay, one more. One more for good measure. This one's a classic. The most important thing to do if you find yourself in a hole is to stop digging.
Oh, how many times have we all been guilty of that? Doubling down on a bad decision, hoping that it's going to magically turn around.
Oh, I know I have. But Buffett's saying, sometimes the smartest thing you can do is admit that you're wrong, cut your losses, and move on.
Yeah.
Like there's no shame in changing course.
It's about recognizing when a path isn't working and having the courage to kind of find a new one.
Okay, so the 1 Hour Guide is full of these amazing, insightful quotes. What are a few more that kind of stood out to you?
Okay, how about this one? Price is what you pay, value is what you get. And I think that's just so crucial to remember, not just in investing, but in all areas of life.
Right. Like it's so tempting to always go for the cheapest option, but sometimes, you really do get what you pay for.
Exactly. Focus on that underlying value, the quality, the long-term benefits. It might cost you more upfront, but that payoff, in the long run can be way greater.
Okay, here's another gem that really resonates with me. Honesty is a very expensive gift. Don't expect it from cheap people.
Powerful, isn't it? Surround yourself with those people who are trustworthy, who are reliable, and who have those strong ethics. It's one of the best investments you can make in life.
And last but not least, this one really speaks to, the importance of finding your passion. There comes a time when you ought to start doing what you want. Take a job that you love. You will jump out of bed in the morning.
It's just a great reminder that life is way too short to be stuck in a job you hate. Find something that brings you joy, find what makes you feel alive, and I think that success will naturally follow.
I love that. Now, these quotes, they're just like a glimpse into this wealth of wisdom that Warren Buffett shares in the 1 Hour Guide by Anil Nathu.
Mhm.
It's a fantastic resource for anyone that's looking to learn from, one of the greatest investors of all time.
For sure.
And I encourage everyone who's listening, just spend some time reflecting on these quotes, see how they resonate with your own life, and maybe even, find some new favorites.
Yeah, totally.
Now, let's shift gears a little bit and talk about some of those practical investing tips, keys to building wealth that are shared in, the final chapter of the book.
So Buffett has this amazing ability to just distill these complex concepts into simple, actionable advice.
Right.
And the first tip is all about timing. The time is now, as the book puts it.
Now, that might seem counterintuitive, especially when markets are, volatile and there's a lot of uncertainty in the air.
Totally. But Buffett's point is that those are often the best times to invest.
Okay.
When everyone else is panicking and selling, he's buying. He sees opportunity where others see disaster.
So it's kind of about having the courage to go against the herd and trust your own judgment.
Exactly. Don't let fear paralyze you. If you've done your research, you believe in a company's long-term potential, those downturns can be a chance to actually buy at a discount.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So what's the next tip?
Think long-term, which is a recurring theme in Buffett's philosophy, and I think especially relevant in investing. It's about tuning out that noise, ignoring those daily fluctuations of the market, and focusing on that bigger picture.
Choosing companies that you think will be successful years, maybe even decades down the road.
Precisely. Be patient. Let those investments kind of grow and compound over time. The real magic happens when you give those great businesses time to flourish.
Okay, now this next tip might ruffle some feathers. Be wary of market experts.
I think this is especially important today where it feels like everyone has an opinion on what the market's going to do. We're constantly bombarded with information, with predictions, with advice from all sides.
But as Buffett wisely points out, no one can consistently predict the market. Even those so-called experts get it wrong.
Right, so what's the solution? Do your own research, develop your own understanding of the businesses you're investing in, and don't just blindly follow the herd.
So basically, be informed, be critical, and make your own decisions.
Exactly. And finally, that last tip is all about decisiveness. Be decisive and confident. And this kind of reminds me of that whole Tesco story where he held on to those stocks for way too long, even when it was clear that they were underperforming.
It was a good lesson learned, though, right? Sometimes you need to cut your losses and move on. Don't let sentimentality or, fear of making a mistake hold you back.
Yeah, be decisive, be confident, and trust your gut.
Awesome. So these are just a few of those investing tips that are shared in the 1 Hour Guide by Anil Nathu. And, it's a fantastic resource for anyone who's looking to learn from one of the greatest investors of all time. All right, so welcome back to the deep dive.
We're wrapping up our exploration of Warren Buffett's investment wisdom.
And really trying to hone in on some of those key takeaways, those things that are going to make a difference.
From the 1 Hour Guide.
Yeah, from the 1 Hour Guide by Neil Nathu, that can really help people on their own financial journey.
For sure, yeah.
It's been such an insightful discussion so far. We've covered so much ground from like Buffett's early life and that entrepreneurial spirit to his core investment principles and his approach to portfolio building.
And we can't forget those motivational sayings.
Yeah, that was my favorite part.
That apply to not just investing, but life.
Absolutely. So, let's try to like distill all this amazing information, some key actionable insights. Like, what does all this mean for, someone listening today?
Well, here's the thing. You don't have to be a financial expert to apply Buffett's wisdom.
Okay.
Like, his principles are really rooted in common sense, discipline, and a long-term perspective.
Okay, that's encouraging. So where should someone even begin?
Well, I would say start by thinking about your own financial goals.
Okay.
What are you hoping to achieve? Are you saving up for retirement, a down payment on a house, your kids' education?
Right.
Having a really clear vision of your goals is super important.
That makes sense. So like once you kind of know where you want to go, you can start figuring out how to actually get there.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where I think Buffett's principles really come in. So think back to those 4 cornerstones of his investment approach. Invest in businesses with long-term growth potential. Buy those businesses when they're undervalued. Prioritize high returns on invested capital and work with managers who are honest and competent.
So those principles, they can be applied to like anyone's own investment decisions.
Yeah.
Whether they're choosing, individual stocks, mutual funds, even real estate.
Exactly. And remember, it's not about chasing those quick profits. It's not about trying to time the market. It's about building a solid foundation for long-term growth and financial security.
And it's about being patient.
Yes.
Like you said earlier, Rome wasn't built in a day, and neither is a successful investment portfolio.
Absolutely. Be prepared to kind of weather those market fluctuations. Stay focused on your goals and trust in the power of compounding over time. Consistency and discipline are key.
Now, before we wrap up, I wanted to touch on something that you mentioned earlier about investing in yourself.
Yes.
I found that really intriguing.
It's something that Buffett emphasizes a lot.
Okay.
Like your skills, your knowledge, your network. These are all assets that can appreciate in value over time.
So how can someone, invest in themselves?
I mean, it could be anything, from taking courses, learning new skills, attending industry events to expand your network, to even just reading books and articles to stay informed.
So it's about like continually growing and evolving.
Yeah.
Both personally and professionally.
For sure. And just like with financial investments, the earlier you start investing in yourself, the greater the potential for long-term growth.
So there you have it, our deep dive into the wisdom of Warren Buffett, as shared in, of course, the 1 Hour Guide by Anil Nathu.
We've explored his life, his investment philosophy, those motivational sayings, and even some really practical tips for building wealth.
We hope this deep dive has given you a good understanding of Buffett's approach and that you're feeling inspired to apply those principles to your own journey.
Investing is a marathon, not a sprint. Be patient, be disciplined, and always keep learning.
And of course, if you're looking for more insights from Warren Buffett, be sure to check out that 1 Hour Guide by Anil Nathu. It's a fantastic resource.
Full of information on business, investing, and even personal growth.
Well, hey, thank you for joining us today on the Deep Dive.
And be sure to visit the 1 Hour Guide website for even more business insights by Anil Nathu.